Are we live? You're live. Alrighty. So, I'm just gonna get straight into this. So, you came here because you wanted to learn a little bit more about Autocall. Autocall is kind of coming back around. Um, you know, for the longest time, the only thing I knew about Autocall was the CPG signal pull station, the Federal 4050001T, or the Autocall pull station. You'd sometimes see them branded as Autocall. That was the only time I'd ever heard of Autocall up until fairly recently. So, Autocall is not a new company. Autocall was founded around 1908, and the name stuck because it was a fire alarm system that would automatically call. It would automatically send the signal out. So that was kind of how it got its name. And they made a lot of, technological innovations in the alarm industry. So, like in 1973, they actually put together the first voice evacuation system. So that's pretty cool. You know, Finding that out was definitely really cool. So, they've definitely made a lot of advancements in the alarm industry. So, though nowadays, it's quite a bit different. So, Autocall was bought out by Tyco back in '01, you know, after 93 years of service. And then it was bought out by Tyco. And then once Tyco was bought by JCI decided to, in 2017, relaunch the Autocall name. And, they retained it, but it went unused until they merged with JCI in 2016. And then it was relaunched as a subsidiary brand. So these days, Autocall markets a complete line of basically just off-brand simplex stuff. And they, along with simplex, have an addressable notification appliance line known as Truealert ES, which you may be aware of. There's also another one that not a lot of people know about, which is called Truealert Addressable. So, Truealert Addressable has been around for quite a while. If you ever look at a simplex system from like maybe '03 and you see the strobes, they've got a little red light that blinks every once in a while, that means it's polling. That means it's got a little addressable chip in it that is actually sending signals to the panel and receiving signals from the panel at all times. So basically, addressable notification is not exactly new, but it's still new enough that there's not a whole lot of information that people can really throw around about it. Yes, I did. I did move, and I'm liking it so far. But with Autocall, instead of, like the case with simplex, where anything simplex you have to call JCI to come out and deal with their exuberant charges and, all the time and money and frustration. Autocall, still very similar to simplex in the way that it operates, but, and that's just as far as the panels go, but with Autocall, any Autocall dealer can install, program, maintain, service those systems. So you don't have to get JCI involved, which is going to cost you like 4 or 5 times the amount of, just a regular, service charge. So that is one nice thing about Autocall, is that you don't have to go directly through JCI. You don't have to have JCI come out and program it. Which they probably could program Autocall, but you probably don't want them to, because they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for it. That's just for programming. So, yeah, Autocall and Simplex, they're very similar, but they're also very different in the way that the brands are marketed and operated. So, yeah, that is one thing. One very big difference. So, yeah. But pretty much everything that you see from Simplex, you will see from Autocall. So, panels, you'll see the 4007 ES, the one with the touchscreen, the little one. You'll see the 4010 ES, also as Autocall, and then you'll also find the 4100 ES from Autocall as well. All the newer panels, like the 2004F, the 4004R, which is the agent release or the suppression release system, you'll find those from Autocall as well. Basically everything Simplex from like the past 10 years or so, you'll find as Autocall as well. Which means you will not find an Autocall 4100U, you won't find an Autocall 4100, you'll only find Autocall 4100 ESs. So none of the legacy 4100 panels. Just anything after 2017 you'll find as Autocall also. So that also means you will not find any Autocall MapNet devices. You'll never find any of those. Autocall only has IDNet nowadays. They had, right before they were bought out, they did have an SLC protocol. They did have an addressable line. It's not very well known. I can't even tell you what the name of it is, just because I don't know. But they did have it for a very short time, and whether it was manufactured by a system sensor or themselves, I have no idea also. So that that you'll have to figure that out. But everything else I will talk about, I promise. So the big thing with Autocall, though, is the addressable notification. So with the addressable notification, you will find, as I said earlier, the addressable Truealert and then Truealert ES, but they do make conventional devices. So like they've got conventional speaker strobes, they've got conventional horn strobes and horns and speakers. They've got all that. And they're all the devices that you all know. The ceiling horn strobes, the wall horn strobes. And then you'll also find the wall and ceiling speaker strobes as well. So if I just find the Autocall speaker strobes, just for fun, you'll find all kinds of different things. So right here, right here, there's a conventional Autocall speaker strobe. Simplex does have these as well, as you know, but Simplex has the addressable ones that look exactly the same, which will have the light blinking every once in a while. The addressable ones actually look like this, with the strobe on the top. And those are the Truealert ES devices. And as far as I know, Autocall does not have the addressable, the Truealert addressable speaker strobes. The only choices you have are conventional and then Truealert ES for speaker strobes. So if I go right here, whoopsie. So basically with conventional, those are the options that you have right there. Now, addressable, if you want to go addressable with speaker strobes, they got you there. The part numbers for those devices is interesting as well, and I've actually given them a nickname. I call them apples. So if I look up 49SV APPL, so yeah, that's where I get the Apple name from. Basically the same thing that I just showed you. This is a simplex one, but the Autocall one has the exact same part number. It just has an A in front of it. So instead of 49SV, it'll be A49SV. And there's a lot of things that these can do. And yes, in being addressable, that does mean that you can T-tap them. However, that is just the knack. That's just the ID knack. The speaker is still conventional, so still has the end-of-line resistor, and you cannot T-tap that because that is not addressable. But the ID knack is addressable. So one thing that you can do with that is you can have all of your devices on the same circuit. You could T-tap them, which will reduce voltage drops, which is very nice. And if you're doing mass notification, where you've got like alert strobes and stuff, you can have those on the same circuits too. And in the program, you just go and change the functionality from general evac to alert, or you could even change it to other, just depending on what your needs are. So now if I go to 49SV APPLC and I show you one of these, I'm just gonna warn y'all, brace yourselves. This is quite a bit to look at. That is one of these ceiling speaker strobes right there. All right. So I have seen quite a few of those. They're not as visually appealing as the conventional ones are. So it is something to get used to, but at the same time, everything seems to be ugly these days. So you do have that. And one major difference in the conventional and addressable ones is that the addressable ones, the back of them looks like this. All right. It's actually very low profile, and you don't need an extension ring. You could actually mount it on a shallow foursquare if you wanted to. You could mount it on a shallow foursquare, but however, the conventional ones, they've got enough of a spacer on the back of them. The circuit board is big enough that you absolutely do need an extension ring, which, as you guys know, I do not like. So yeah, that's a little bit of my spiel on extension rings, which is something I could go on about all day long, but I'm not going to. One of these days I probably will again. So yeah, on top of that, you might think, addressable notification is overkill, and that's what I thought, but when it comes to hotels and stuff where you need individual notification, for the smoke detector in the rooms, You do not want that to go into general alarm. You do not want to dump the whole building or the 3 floors around you just because you burned some damn popcorn, you know? So, yeah, that's actually by code, by law. It's supposed to just activate the device in your room. Or if it's got a sounder base, just that sounder base. Hotel rooms should never send the building into general alarm. So instead of having to run, aux power, SLC, and stuff like that, you just have to run your ID NAC, and then that's it. Because now everything is controlled at the device level. You don't have to have a control module, sending power to the device, also while pulling from the SLC. All you need is your NAC, which is also an SLC at this point. So that's super helpful, reduces wiring. But if you're doing a speaker strobe, it is still pretty much the same amount of wiring, because you do still need SLC for the smoke, and then you'll need your NAC and your speaker. Now, like I said, the speaker line is not addressable. So one thing that I will say, and this is kind of the only thing about this, and it's kind of mean, but if you have a remote speaker, you do still need 4 wires. You still need your ID NAC and your speaker going to it. And the reason for that is because you need your ID NAC going to it to tell it when to turn on broadcast and then turn off, stop the broadcast. You still need that controlling line. Still need your data line going to it, controlling it, telling it what to do at all times. So even if you got a remote speaker, you still need your NAC and your speaker. But with that, you could put a conventional speaker on it and it would work fine. It would just be like an auxiliary speaker. It would, basically broadcast any event that goes over it, because, whenever an event happens, it is going to send that signal throughout the entire speaker line, but only the device that actually activates is the one that's going to play it. So, there is a little bit of a break, and then once it turns on, that's where that break stops, and you could actually take a toner, while it's going, and then you could actually hear the message being played or the tone. Another thing that's really, really cool about these, and it's actually something I never would have imagined, is these devices have a self-test function. And what that is, there's a couple different modes of this too. So there's a device self-test where you select it, all the devices sound, and then it shows you a log of which devices sounded. It gives you a result of the test. They've got audio sensors and they've got light sensors in each notification device. And those will actually work and tell you if the device sounded, if the device flashed. It can do all of that. So that's really cool. Another thing you can do is an individual device test. Basically, you enable this mode, and then you can go up to the device with a magnet, put it at in the middle of the strobe, and then it will flash and it will sound. And that is very cool. That's very cool. That's a very efficient way to test as well. If you're doing individual testing, just for demonstration, showing someone how it works, or if you're actually doing legitimate work and you want to verify that it works. You can also go into the panel and search. You know, you go to SIG4 device 17, and then it gives you options. It's got, you know, enable, disable, on, off, auto. You press on, guess what? It's going to start sounding that device and that device only. You can do that. And then it's going to give you an override trouble, so you turn it off, and then you put it back on auto, and there you go. So there's a lot that goes into these systems, but they're really, really cool, you know? The technological advancements that are going on, you know, like you've never fully learned everything, okay? You haven't. You know, because in this day and age where technology is constantly improving, you know, there's always something new to learn. You know, even if you've got all 4 NICETs, you know, there's still something new coming along every single day. And that is especially true because Simplex actually just released a new panel. They've got a new panel for their ES line, which is called the 4017 ES. The 4017 ES is like the 4007 ES, but it has integrated voice. So let me show you a picture. Let me show you a picture of this panel. So you get you 4017 ES. It's pretty much the same as the 4007, except it's got this for the interface. And yes, you do see that right. That is a built-in front panel microphone. The microphone is actually built into the panel. That's really cool. That is super, super cool. I like that a lot. However, it is not UL listed as of right now. So if you install one, you're gonna have to get the remote microphone unit and put it alongside it. So all of the things that come with this particular system is going to be all of these right here. And this isn't even all of them. So you've got the battery enclosure, you got the main panel, of course, you've got a remote mic with LEDs and switches right here. Then you've got a remote mic with annunciator, which is really, really cool. Then you got the external main panel microphone. So there's a lot just from that one thing. And on top of that, another new panel, the remote IDNAC amplifier, which is part of the 4009 family. So it's got an addressable NAC extender, a booster power module, a 50-watt amplifier, a remote IDNAC amplifier enclosure per system, and then 3 slots for option cards. You can get it in red or platinum, which is just white. And you know that's just for the 4017. That's just for the 4017 panel. So just from that one, there's all of those new things coming along. And here's an actual picture that has been found of one. And interestingly enough, it's of an Autocall one. Right there, you can see, and it's normal. So that means that one has already been installed in the field, which is really cool. And you can see you've got all speakers evac, all speakers message, page select all, and local speaker. They come default on the panel. Those buttons come pre-programmed, which is really cool. And it might, you know, leave some debate for discussion of like, you know, oh, is it proprietary? I mean, it not as much as Simplex, I will say. It's not as proprietary as Simplex, where only JCI can do it. Like I said, any Autocall dealer can program these things. So it's not as proprietary as Simplex. Any dealer can do it. Now, as far as, like, oh, if you can, program stuff in from the front panel, then it's not proprietary. I would say that's yes and no, but, you know, as far as proprietary goes, I would say that Gamewell is far more proprietary than even Simplex. Gamewell is very complex, especially, once you move up from the 7075, which is not a Gamewell panel, it's just a rebranded Silent Night panel that the only difference with it is that the SLC protocol, it runs velocity instead of IDP or SD or SK. It just runs velocity. It doesn't even do Apollo. And once you start getting into the Gamewell E3 and S3 and even the 7200 for the old heads, or the IF610 for the really old guys, those you absolutely cannot key anything in. The 7075 you can to an extent. You can just add points, but that's it. If you need zones or groups, you got to get the laptop. You got to get the laptop out, because you cannot do that from the front of the panel. It won't let you. Believe me, I've tried many times. It just won't let you. But the 7100, that one will let you, because depending on the programmer, there's an option that you can select for front panel programming, enable or not. So if you get lucky and you have one that they didn't disable that, then you can key anything you want into it. You can do that all day. As long as you you don't have to go in the software and learn about how camming works and stuff like that, you will be absolutely good if you get one of those. Great panels, by the way. Very collector friendly. So back to Autocall though. Autocall, the addressable Truealert devices. We're going to go into the horn strobes. So the addressable Truealert devices, they come in a couple of different types. They've got the 4906 9128, which is the conventional version of the basically the old 4903s from the 90s. So go to 4906 9128. It's a ceiling mount version of the 4903 from the 90s. Basically this thing. You're well familiar with those. That's the part number for the red one. The white one is going to be 9130. But the addressable ones, if you want an addressable one, they do have those. The part number for the addressable ones is 9228 and then 9230. Whether you want red or white. And the autocall number is just A4906 9130 or 9138 or 28. And then addressable is just A4906 9228. So as far as that goes, there are options out there. And on top of that, you can actually have addressable Truealert and Truealert ES devices on the same circuits, which is really cool. You don't have to get a different card for them or anything, because they all just work. And you won't run into any UL 864 9th edition violations for having them on the same circuits, because they are compatible. And the wall devices, as far as the horn strobes and strobes go, the Truealert ES wall devices are also apples as far as the model numbers go. But the Truealert conventional, Truealert addressable, and Truealert ES devices look exactly the same. The only way you'll be able to tell any difference is, you know, one won't have a little blinking red light in it. One will, and then the other one also will, but it will say Truealert ES on the device cover. So there's kind of a way to tell the difference. And in the software, when you're programming the notification appliances, all the addresses, you have to go between Truealert ES and Truealert Addressable. So for Truealert ES, it'll be like AV, HCD, something like that, high candela. And then if you've got a Truealert addressable device, which is one of the rectangular ones, whether it be a remote strobe or one of the horn strobes like I was talking about, you'll just go into, it'll either be AV or strobe, stuff like that. It's very simple. And they do have LED devices, but only for outdoor as of right now. For indoor, they've still got the same strobes that they've been using for the past 30 years. So, yeah, but they do have different color covers, and they do have some different languages. And I was actually able to get one myself for a very reasonable price. I was able to get this for $10 off of eBay, brand new in the packaging. As you can see right there, brand new in the packaging. And I do have a speaker on the way that I am going to bypass the addressable module so I can actually use it. But as far as I know, whether it's a horn or a speaker, whether it's a ceiling horn or speaker, you can use this for either and it'll work. Even though this one says it is an SO cover, which means speaker only, you could use this on a horn only, which would be an AO. So the device part numbers are very simple for Truealert ES. If you want a horn strobe, it's going to be 49AV, APPL-C for ceiling, or APPL-W for wall. For horn only, it's going to be 49AO. AO. And then for strobe only, it's going to be VO for visual only. The AO is audible only. If you want speaker only, it's going to be SO, 49SO. And if you want a speaker strobe, it's going to be 49SV. So, yeah, these devices, I call them apples. In case I didn't say that earlier, I call them apples because, in the part number, it's got APPL in it. So, and they're round, so they're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna call them apples. I think it's genius. But yeah, I think this looks really cool. I wish there were more black devices that would go around. They do offer this as an option, and yet I was very lucky to find this, especially for such a low price. But you'll be able to see right here, there is a little hole. That's for the LED. So each device has a little LED to let you know that it is polling. And it is working the way that it should be. And these devices will also do a kind of a daily test. They won't make any noise, but this ensures that they work properly and that they will work properly under worst case conditions. And that brings me to another thing, which is current draw. So current draw is also greatly reduced, even though there's still, xenon gas strobes, which will eventually go out, just like the carbon monoxide detector bases, where you have to replace the cartridges like every 4 years. The way that these reduce current draw is by running at 29 volts DC. Instead of running at 24 volts, they run at 29 volts, which reduces current draw. And a reduction in current draw means that you can use smaller gauge wire. And smaller gauge wire in itself will reduce costs, and it won't be as hard to work with, because running anything in 14.2 solid wire, it's kind of difficult. The wire is very difficult to work with. The only thing that's really good about it is the scrap value. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But other than that, I am not a fan of 14.2, especially the speaker. The speaker wire, my company likes to use stranded 14.2. And yes, shielded. Always shielded. But stranded 14.2 is very annoying to work with. It's very irritating, especially if you're stripping the jacket back and you get some wire bristles that get cut off. That's never fun, especially when you get stabbed by one. Believe me, getting stabbed by a little copper wire bristle literally feels like getting stung by a scorpion. It hurts so bad. And I have no idea why it hurts so bad, but it does. And it is incredibly painful. Well, I said it hurts so bad and it is incredibly painful. Just repeating myself. But yeah, a reduction in the wire gauge is a good thing for reducing costs, and limiting current draw is also going to reduce costs because it's going to reduce the amount that you pay every month on your electric bill. And the way that works is, just like how your microwaves and ovens, they run at 240 volts. If they were to run at 120 volts, they would draw so much current that the power system would have to be upgraded, pretty much universally. So they instead run them at 240 volts to allow them to use less current. And it works. It absolutely works. So there's a lot that goes into these systems. They really thought of everything. And the TrueSight workstations, they still do those. They still have those. They've got text message, alert boards, just puts out the status of the system, and mass notification, like I said. And then another thing, they've got they've got an interface. They've got like a system map interface. If you put one of those in, your fire department will love you. They will absolutely love you. So if you find you a picture of one of these on panel, you'll really only see these on the 4100s. But if I can find a picture of one, I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So, like I said, you got the Truealert, or the TrueSight workstation. There's all kinds of different things, like I keep saying. So, there's even, you can even put it to your phone. You can control it from your phone. If you ever watch Mr. Truealert, he's able to acknowledge alarms from his phone. And networking is also a thing that can be done. You can network panels together to either trip each other or enunciate only for the devices in that group. And grouping is another big thing. You can not only group SLC devices and NACs together, but you can group notification appliances together with their address. So it's no longer just dependent on how it's wired. You can actually group them by their addresses. So like you can select these addresses go off for this, you know, which means you can put a water flow signal on the same circuit as your general evac devices and even as the same circuit as your alert devices. So that is really, really cool. And you can have up to 127 devices on one circuit. Basically, the limit for that is just, you know, how high the dip switches will equal to. So, like, you know, 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 plus 32 plus 64 equals 127. That's the value that you can go up to. And, you know, there's different enunciators you can get. You can get, like, you know, graphic enunciators like this one from Autocall, which is absolutely massive. It's like 13 by 20 inches. It's absolutely massive, but it's an option. They also allow legacy enunciator cards like the 4603, 9101, you know, the little LED enunciators that just show zones and stuff like that. You know, you can get those too. You can put pretty much anything that you want on these. And of course now it's wanting to freeze on me and mess with me. But if I find a picture of the map interface that I was talking about, and you know, while I'm trying to find that, I'll talk about some other things. So there's a new panel which is called the 4009 Extender Plus. And what that is, it's basically like a 4007, just without the controls and the screen. It's got its own IDNet expander, its own SLC loop expander, and it also, some of them actually come with a NAC card. So you've got 3 additional ID NACs. Even if you only use one, you've got those other 2, and it has an onboard programmable relay that you can use for whatever. So like door holders, you know, if you wanted to do that. It also has a simple NAC on it. And the nice thing about that is it runs off of the RUI, which only needs 2 wires. The enunciators, they still need 4 wires, but the Extender Plus, it just needs 2 wires coming from the RUI, which is really nice. So, unfortunately, I cannot seem to find a picture of the map interface that I was talking about. Okay, so here it is right here. There's the map of the building, of that particular building on that particular panel. It'll show you exactly what's going on, you know, exactly where the alarm is coming from and exactly what is sounding. If you put that in, your fire department is going to love you. They are going to love you to death. And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, keep using these guys, you know, keep bringing them, you know, that's going to make it so much easier for us, you know, because firefighters, they go through a lot, you know. Any little thing that you can do to make their lives easier, you know, it helps them not only, you know, make their lives easier, but in the end, it'll make your life easier because, you know, then they're able to respond even faster. You know, and I mean, it might be might cause a drop in the bucket, but remember, this is life safety that you're talking about. You know, this isn't just some, you know, some little niche, little thing. You know, this is actually a big deal, and some places might actually start requiring it. So, like, you've got, you know, the custom graphic enunciator panel, and then, you know, you could have that internally mounted, or you could even have it externally mounted. And then you can and go on from there to additional enunciators. So like there are endless possibilities with these systems. You know, there's really no limit to what you can do with them. And tech support is also very helpful from what I've heard. You know, they don't sound like the firelight got them at the board who'd never worked on the firearm system before in North America. Just saying, you know, I've heard that they are very helpful and they're very knowledgeable. All of them seem to have done this before. They actually know what they're doing. So if you ever get a chance to work with Autocall, absolutely do not throw it out. You know, it is a very, very awesome platform to work with. So anyway, I don't know how I managed to talk about all of this in less than an hour, but I did. I guess that's just how much I know about it. No, I'm kidding. But you know, and I'm sure I know there's still a lot more to cover, but you know, that's all the information that I've been able to come up with just from all the hours of research that I've done. You know, being able to figure out that Truealert Addressable and Truealert ES can be put on the same circuits, you know, and that they offer different colors. And you know, it's not like Edwards where they offer 102 different colors for notification appliances. You know, I mean, that's pretty crazy, but at the same time, I am perfectly happy with doing a bunch of black alarms. You know, I think it's unique. I think black is very slick. You know, like if I were to go and put this on my wall. Look at that. You kidding? That looks good. Tell me that doesn't look good. You know, if you wanted to match aesthetics, you know, black will do that. Trust me, it will. Even more so probably than red or white. You know, it just works. And basically all the brands right now, like Wheelock and System Sensor, you can get devices in black. They actually start out as black, so you absolutely can. You know, not a lot of people know about that. You can even get the smoke detectors in black. You know, Autocall and Simplex, they do that too. You know, same with System Sensor. You know, they've got the 300 CK covers. You know, which is, you know, well, I have the 200 CK, which is what I have in the shop on the shop system. But they've got the ones for the PL3s now too. And I've been able to locate one of those for a good price. So, you know, this is, you know, this is all information that, you know, I've been able to come up with just for a video like this. And all of it might not make sense right now, but as more and more information becomes available, hopefully I'll be able to do more videos on this, and y'all will be able to learn about it, and you know, we'll really be able to bring this stuff out and make it more well known, and then hopefully the knowledge will be so good that basically anyone can do this. You know, being able to work with Autocall, and then maybe even later down the line Simplex. So anyways, that's it. I'm done with this video. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for watching. If you found this helpful, if you found this interesting, entertaining, please leave me a like. You know, if there's anything that you think I missed, leave a comment. You know, I love hearing from you guys. So anyway, I will talk to y'all real soon.